Even turn down the music the tiniest bit. Genius players, Sean. Genius fucking players. Alright, now before we lag the game out, alt-tabbing so much. Spawning as player 1 today, we've got Kaspara in the blue trunks as Greek. And spawning in the red trunks, in the top corner, we've got SpartanxElite as the red Norse. So, both of them looking to take their hunt. Kaspara's is a little bit safer, right here up the back. We'll actually just chuck this down. A little bit safer here, just in the back. Just found another one off the side, so it's also not that safe. I'm just gonna, here we go. Mouse DPI all the way down. Holy shit, it's a little bit laggy. I couldn't imagine playing with this DPI. So there's a distance gather there, that's not so good. Realistically, if you are going to try and take that first hunt, you sort of do have to keep an eye on to make sure that, you know, you can just rally the villager back here, cut down the travel time. But that's alright. He's opted to just leave his villagers there, because sometimes it's not really worth going for that much travel distance. It's hard to say exactly how much unless you're really, really good at spatial, you know, visual spatial awareness or whatever. I'm not. Anyway, so we've got Kaspara going for a barracks as well. And his is about the same health really. Actually, no, Kaspara's is a little bit ahead. He's got a second villager on there. And in terms of villagers on the food, we got 5 here, 6 for Kaspara. SpartanxElite now getting up to 6 as well. He's a little bit behind on that count, I think. Because Kaspara has actually got a little bit more in his queue. His barracks is already finished up. His first spearman should be just about ready. Here we go. So both ways, still just scouting out the map. Cass has found a couple of gold mines here. Does it show me the resource? No, it doesn't show me. It tells me everyone's resource is scouted. Bit of a bugger with that. Be nice if that could be fixed, because then I could actually see, oh, you know, SpartanxElite hasn't actually. Oh no, here we go. There we can. Okay, never mind, I take that back. So that is working. So SpartanxElite can't actually see a lot of the golds of Kaspara. Whereas Cass has pretty much just as much vision over SpartanxElite's starting resources. So he's a little bit ahead in terms of that sort of vision game, so to speak. And he might lose a scout here actually. Cass actually opts to leave it alive, because when it's on really low health, he's sort of either got to throw it away, delete it, or get the healing tech to actually get any value out of that population slot. So, you know, as much as SpartanxElite will catch up in vision if he keeps scouting with it, it's often worth just to leave him alive on really, really low health, because then your opponent sort of has to throw them away in a fight anyway. So that was a nice little harass, just forcing that one villager back. But I think he basically brought everything back, SpartanxElite, just because he sort of anticipated a spear rush. Kaspara confident that he can sort of throw this fella away. Just get a nice view of how many spears he's going to pull for that, so he can send in an even number again. And yeah, take a really nice fight. Actually backing out of that fight, tagging his opponent once. But SpartanxElite's busy trying to throw down longhouses. I think he might have just about been housed there, maybe had to cancel a spearman. No, he's actually got stuff in queue. So you see Kaspara actually harassing a lot of villagers here. Yeah, there's actually 7 villagers, one of them falls for that. But SpartanxElite again, bringing his forces back before he actually is able to do any damage to Cass. So having picked off that villager, we got 18 to 19 villagers. Neither player choosing to age just yet. Looks like Kaspara is going to lose a couple of spearmen for this, but it'll pretty much be worth it. The economic gain will pretty much offset that. So he is going to lose that spearman. This one is in the snare loop as well. And in fact, if you want your spears to travel a bit faster in that instance, you can actually rally them up past the unit, stop command, rally them up past, stop command. So that's something you can actually do to work in slightly quicker attacks in that situation if you've got the control and sort of the awareness with your macro to actually do that without it actually costing you anything. But yeah, SpartanxElite's throwing away 4 or 5 spearmen here. This isn't going to work out so well for him because he's chasing this low spear. He's sort of caught up over here because he wants to engage on this huntable, but Kaspara realizes that the spear's coming in, pulls everything out. That's why it's not necessarily a good idea to lead in with your scouts like that, because they do basically no damage to the villagers, so you're going to opt to attack a building anyway, and you can potentially alert your opponent when he otherwise wouldn't know. So a lot of the time it is actually worth... Here we go, Kaspara is going to manage to clean this up quite fine, I think. Just rallying all his villagers back over once the spears wrap round, so he is going to be able to hold against this. And yeah, like I was saying, because those scouts let in, Kaspara was tipped off to the spearmen coming in, and the spearmen are what you really want to make the first contact. If your opponent hasn't seen it yet, they're going to potentially be able to snare lock and kill a villager in that situation, so just keep that in mind. Actually, I don't think they can snare them, but you know what I mean. They can potentially kill them, or at least, you know, force your opponent to have to keep his low villagers back on things, like Kaspara opting to leave that one on the berries when he could have just brought that up there, but he is confident that if it's on such a low amount of health, SpartanxElite might be able to snipe it, so it's just worthwhile taking the slight economic hit, so to speak, to do that. So we've got 24 to 23 villagers. Kaspara still up 1, basically didn't lose a single villager then, I don't think. Both players now in age 2, but Kaspara is in a really good shape with his economy. Stacked town centers already. SpartanxElite is going up to his 2 barracks, 1 stables that he likes to go with, which does sort of put him at a bit of an economic back foot. But I think he believes that he can try and mass up the units slightly quicker than the Greek player in this instance, but Kaspara in a really good position economically, so I don't think it's going to work out as well as SpartanxElite anticipates. SpartanxElite actually cleaning up the walls there, just to keep all of his units from being harassed by that as they stream in, but looks like Kaspara is going to try streaming 3 spearmen around villagers. He's got this 1 sheep here he hasn't picked up. That's bad. Nah. There is only a fairly small unit count here for Kaspara though. SpartanxElite has forced out a couple of raiders quite quickly, and he's going to pick off a Hypaspist. Should be able to pick off this Toxotes, but he doesn't actually rally his raiders in straight away, so he misses the potential to take the fight without the Toxotes in the mix. Right now Kaspara's spearmen are actually heading around to the back of SpartanxElite's base, but it looks like SpartanxElite wants to really take this fight. Kaspara has stacked up his Toxotes right in the middle of the fight there, and it's not actually taking focus fire from the throwing axeman, so it's going to actually be able to deal a lot of damage over the course of this fight. SpartanxElite trying with all his might to cut through Kaspara's forces, but he's not really picking off any high priority targets here in the fight, so he didn't focus the Toxotes or the Hypaspist, which is ideally what you want to try and focus with the throwing axemen. They're a really good unit against both, basically, in a sense. They're a counter infantry unit, but they're the crappiest at counter infantry, but also the least that are actually hard countered by ranged units like the Toxotes. So because of their range in a fight like that, it's actually pretty easy to try and pick off individual ones when there's a really low count. As you can see, Kaspara is still only up to about 7 of them, so yeah, if SpartanxElite had have jumped on them first with either the raiders or the throwing axemen, he could have really just used the spears to tank against the Hypaspist and potentially have done a better job, really leaving the spearmen last to kill unless they manage to actually get onto the raiders, in which case you probably want to split off some to focus whichever is sort of snaring the raider to prevent Toxotes being hit. So that's sort of the ideal way to take that fight, but I think now SpartanxElite's going to be too far behind really to be able to make a good deal out of this, because he's going to lose this villager on the longhouse, and the spearmen are going to fall quite quickly as well, but he is going to have delayed that. SpartanxElite not actually being housed by that, so that's a good sign in a sense. It also means he's probably throwing up the longhouses a little bit too fast in this case, because he's got 20 more population space than he actually has population. Going in with a fairly reasonable engage here, because he's gone straight onto the Toxotes. Kaspara just trying to pick off the raiders quickly with the spearmen, and he has moved the Toxotes up to deal with the throwing axemen. He's got a nice spread of these, really. He's kept them separate. A bit hard for the Raiders to really swarm them. And this nice mixed unit composition from Kaspara does manage to do the job. The single Sarasophoid just coming in to mop up a couple of throwing axemen. So it will actually hit quite hard against them. Doesn't get a multiplier per se. But it's got such good mobility and nice health pool. A little bit, about twice as tanky actually as the throwing axeman. So another big engage in the middle here. Kaspara isn't looking to send any units around at this point. He's just sort of taking his time, pushing up into his opponent slowly. Not looking to throw this away at all, because it can then make the game go on a little bit longer than he needs it to, because right now all he needs to really do is get a good, about maybe 120 population at this point, and he might be able to break through SpartanxElite completely, who hasn't actually gone up to a second town center at all yet. There's a lot of idle villagers dancing around because he wants to pick a gold mine, but I don't think he has a terrible amount of vision. He does know about these gold mines though, but perhaps he's just opting for the safest option he can at the moment. And these villagers though are going to get caught out because the Norse army has backed off so far, and this storehouse is quite far forward. Kaspara actually going for a really greedy berries gather here, but he is going to actually have scattered and responded to this, and he'll be able to take a really nice fight here. There simply isn't enough raiders to be able to deal with this many Toxotes at this point. And so the throwing axemen, there's no spearmen left in the mix, so these throwing axemen are going to take forever to kill the Sarasophoid. They're going to get off tons of free hits as well, basically like a big mounted Toxotes at this stage. So we see SpartanxElite backing off ever further. He's only on 36 villages, Kaspara all the way up to 64, so quite a big economic difference now between these two players. And SpartanxElite, even though he's got reasonable amount of production, he's just that low in villages, he's not really able to keep gathering to actually work towards anymore in terms of economy or tech in a sense, and that's one of the pitfalls of trying to go with these very quick push strategies off the one town center, is that you simply don't hit the worker count you need to actually be able to sustain things like big pushes up the middle and trying to take a raid and trying to tech up and trying to, you know, get all your upgrades, that sort of thing. You'll never really be able to hit age 3 or be able to try and get out the stone and wooden gold that you need to actually spend on upgrades if you're playing off one town center. You've only got such a low villager count at this stage of the game. I'm not saying that there's never a point to builds like this, but unless you can play them perfectly, or at least more perfectly than your opponent is playing a more greedy strategy, then it's extremely hard to come back from a position like this. It's already half the score of Kaspara. He's going to take one last stand here, try and ferry the raiders all the way to the back of the army, but he does take a lot of hits in the meantime. Kaspara has actually got his damage upgrades, I believe. Unfortunately, I can't actually see the unit and upgrade queue counter at the moment yet. It's being fixed at this stage. There's a lot of raiders heading around to try and hit these Toxotes, but there's so many Toxotes and there's plenty of spears here to still clean this up. The Hypaspists are also in the mix, getting good connections against these strong axemen. There's a lot of big hits. Basically getting 25 damage out of a 10 damage unit because of these nice hits on the counters, so Kaspara doing a wonderful job at cutting through his opponent's army at this stage. SpartanxElite really sort of panicking at this stage, throwing down the guard towers, but he just doesn't really have the villagers to get these up quickly, or the infantry to be able to do this either. So he's going to continue to lose more of these villagers on his wood line. He's got plenty of wood in the bank, but he really doesn't have the villagers to be throwing away at this point, because Kaspara has nearly 50 worker lead on him, 45 workers differential at the moment, which is ridiculous. There's no way SpartanxElite can really come back from this, because Kaspara can just continually reinforce until he maxes out quicker than SpartanxElite can actually cut down any units of his. The stables is falling, one of the towers that hadn't quite finished is fallen. A lot of villagers here just idle, really, taking free hits. They do so little damage. Can't even see it on the sheet. Yeah, realistically, the only villagers that can really be taking fights against anything are potentially Celt villagers. And that's once you get a late game upgrade for trying to help clear siege and that sort of thing. So here we see the storehouse of SpartanxElite. Must have lost a couple of villagers there as well, because Sparrow had sent over quite a few units, so he must have wanted to mop that up quickly. He's actually continuing to harass up near this top town centre, and he's continuing to scout out behind his opponent's base, because SpartanxElite is desperately going to have to expand outwards from here at some stage. He's got so little resources here in the middle. He's got no gold, he's got the 1 berries, he's got a little bit of stone. The wood line is pretty much all chopped out, so he needs to work towards this side. Needs to work back over to here again. But I don't think Gasparo is going to give him the chance to. There's such a difference in score. 16 workers to 82, so about 5 times the workers now. Gasparo throwing down the fortress. There's going to be no way from coming back from this, from SpartanxElite. Gasparo only using a couple of villages because he knows that he is going to be pretty much uncontested in this unless his opponent does manage to scout it. Although he has enough units here to try and fight off the units if that's too long. You know, realistically, if SpartanxElite had scouted it ASAP, he probably could have at least denied it, because Kaspara hasn't got a lot of stone in the bank to throw up another at the stage. Trying to throw up upgrades in behind this, I don't think he's got a huge amount of them. He's got his damage upgrades, but obviously he hasn't got his Age 1 defensive upgrade against the range damage, because at this stage there is no range damage from the Norse player except for his static defense. Kaspara continuing to gather all over the map, got his market secured, so 85 villages to 19. He's in a really good spot. This is sort of the eco he needs to really take the game to late game already, but SpartanxElite is basically in a just come out of Age 1 stage still. Unfortunately, because of all the harass and the fact that he opted to play such an aggressive strategy and not have done a great deal of damage with it at all, so it's a good raid account here though. So he may be able to mop up an awful lot of these Toxotes, but it's going to be a bit too little too late, because the fortress is going to finish in time. Having pulled the raiders out with his throwing axemen means that they're not here to chip away at any infantry targeting his buildings, so another force from Kaspara just coming back here to deny this goal, which I guess could have been prevented with a bit better raider splitting there. He could have sent some to continue to chop away at all those Toxotes, and sent the rest here straight onto this force and kept the throwing axeman in the fight, but he's just so far behind now, I don't think it matters at all. I think it's going to be a GG for SpartanxElite. I mean GG to Kaspara. Here we go. So take a gander at the quest stats. So the villager population. So SpartanxElite falling a little bit behind there with his villager production, and sort of hitting a stage where he never manages to maintain them, because Kaspara can push straight into his base. Huge difference in military populations. And the gathering, by the end of the game, Kaspara had gathered about double